Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topic Gamer here to give you another one of my requested top 5 list videos to share with you guys today. It was a pretty slow week in terms of ideas that people requested me to do for my channel. And speaking of slow ideas, I'm actually kind of in the middle of a transitional period because I'm right now, you guys can't see it from your angle, but I'm actually getting ready to move to a new location. So these last few videos that you see here are probably going to be the last videos that you guys see of me in this current setting, and probably in like a week or two you'll be seeing me in a different location with a completely new setup, so I'm kind of excited for that. So for this particular idea that was sent to me by, I believe, this viewer, if I remember correctly, from Twitch, and for this video, as I'm sure you can tell from the title, I'll be sharing with you guys my top 5 favorite superhero video games. Now, as of recently, I would say like over the last decade and a half, there have been a lot of truly phenomenal superhero based video games, just like there's been a lot of incredible superhero based movies. Now, I decided to mix it up a little bit this time around because if I was really going to do a true top 5 video of like my all-time favorite superhero video games, it would be mostly based on just Batman games from the Arkham series. So to kind of balance it out a little bit, I decided that I'm only going to pick one game per each superhero, just so we can kind of, diversify the list a little bit. So if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep track of me and all my future ideas or videos. And if you do happen to have any ideas that you think would make for great either top 5 list videos, or worst to best ranking videos, or reaction videos, or just reviews in general, make sure you share those ideas with me also in the comments down below. So starting off with number 5 on my list, I decided to go with something that's a bit more broad and not just necessarily focusing on one character but a series of characters, and that has to go to Injustice 2. Now, I thought Injustice 1, Gods Among Us, was an incredible fighting game. I mean, this came from NetherRealm Studios, and they're famous for making Mortal Kombat. So when they were able to make a sequel and follow up to that didn't follow the whole alternate dimensions time, storyline, I thought that it was a great setting. I thought the fighting mechanics were improved. I thought the story of both sides of, the resistance and the regime having to unite forces in order to fight Brainiac, who, Brainiac would be the type of threat that you would really have to unite everyone in order to take out, was a great story. I liked all the drama. I liked all the action set pieces. I mean, it was masterfully filmed with its cinematics. And I thought the voice acting, the performances, the visuals were all grand. And the fighting mechanics, just like in the first game, were great. I mean, this comes from people who made Mortal Kombat, so of course I know how to do fighting games exceptionally well. If I had to point out any main flaw that I think I have with Injustice, simply is that I don't think it really gets the respect it deserves amongst the fighting genre. I mean, some people kind of think it's like a second class type of fighting game, but I think that it very much holds its own. It's definitely one of the best fighting games that I've played up to this point in my gaming life. So that's why I would easily place it as number 5 on my list. Now, going into number 4 is a game that I'm sure not a lot of people would, give it much recognition, but that has to go to Deadpool. Now, when the Deadpool movie was first announced, or when it eventually came out, it was just an incredible film. And, Ryan Reynolds did an amazing job playing as the Merc with the Mouth. So when we got a video game with giving us the voice of Nolan North, who is famous for playing Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series, I thought that was also perfect casting for this character. Now, this is much more of a straightforward hack and slash game, with a lot of Deadpool quirks thrown into it. I mean, I would even say that this is a lot more comic book accurate to how Deadpool is in, I'd say, the movies. I think this is definitely closer to what you get in the comic books, and I like how much it breaks the fourth wall. I mean, that's kind of Deadpool's thing, but I think it does it so effectively. I think made it stand out. I mean, there's plenty of weapons. I mean, there's swords, there's hammers, there's scythes, there's all sorts of guns, and the fact that you pretty much have Deadpool just trying to take out the Mr. Sinister, and the fact that you have to deal with all of Mr. Sinister's clones, and there's several of the standard X-Men characters that come in to kind of help him, like Wolverine and Rogue and Colossus, and you got to deal with all these extra kind of forgotten villains that you also have to deal with over the course of the game. I just thought it was just an overall a fun game to enjoy, and definitely worthy of being added to anyone's collection who's a comic book fan or just a fan of Deadpool in general. It's a shame that we only ever got one Deadpool game, because I thought this was definitely worth getting a sequel or a second go. But heck, if we only get one game, I'm okay with that. And that's why I think it's worthy of being at least number 4 on my list. Going into number 3 on my list is a game that is seriously underrated, and a lot of people tend to forget about it. But it has to go to X-Men Origins Wolverine, or Wolverine X-Men Origins, however you guys want to pronounce it. But this is one of the absolute best cases of a video game, a movie-based video game, being better than the film itself. Because I thought that X-Men Origins Wolverine was without question the worst X-Men film ever made. I mean, even after the other ones that came after it were released, I still think that that was like the lowest it ever got. That is not a good movie at all. But the video game based on it, even though it doesn't, it like kind of barely follows the plot of the film, did a much better job of actually telling a much more coherent and interesting story. And the violence was definitely cranked up. I mean, this is what we wanted to see. I mean, if you really want to see an M-rated Wolverine game, this is what you really need to. I mean, and it also helps that, for all intents and purposes, it is in fact a God of War clone, much in the like of something like, Castlevania, Lords of Shadows, or Dante's Inferno. It very much fits in that category, but I think it works perfectly fine. I mean, it has all the types of game mechanics that you would expect from a God of War game in terms of upgrade system, its combat system, its enemy variety, having quick time events, and great cinematics. I mean, it tells a very, very awesome story that's easy to follow and has a lot of great action scenes. Heck, I wish if they'd actually been in the actual movie itself, I think it would have made that film considerably better. And the violence. I mean, you can't complain about the violence. I mean, Wolverine does some pretty insane kills in this game. And the fact that this game does not get as much recognition as I think it deserves is completely and utterly criminal. This is something that you absolutely should go out of your way to kind of seek out. If you're a fan of X-Men or a fan of Wolverine like I am, and you haven't played this game, and you still have your like old Xbox 360 or your PlayStation 3, or if they actually start releasing some of those older games on these new streaming services on the current gen systems, if you have any way of trying to play this game, please do so. You will not regret it, which is why it's number 3 on my list. Now, as we get into the last two, these easily would be on anyone's top 5 list, or list of greatest superhero video games of all time. And when it comes to these last two, it's so close that the number 1 game can only slightly get the advantage over number 2. But number 2 on my list has to go to Marvel's Spider-Man on PlayStation 4. This is without question the greatest Spider-Man game ever made. And trust me, there have been a series of great Spider-Man games, in my opinion, that I have played. I mean, there was the Spider-Man game that came out on the N64. There was Spider-Man Web of Shadows. There was Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. I would even say that Amazing Spider-Man 2, I would even say Spider-Man 2 that came out on the PlayStation 2. I mean, there's just been Spider-Man has been treated incredibly well in video games, but I think that this is really the new pinnacle of being able to experience what it would be like to be like Spider-Man and actually get a chance to actually see what Peter Parker's life is when he's not in the suit. And it does a great job of actually spending some good amount of time on focusing some of the other characters, like Miles Morales when he's the little bit he's in here before he gets his own spin-off in the Miles Morales game. It actually has a good section focusing on Mary Jane. It just has a great series of just amazing characters. I mean, Dr. Octopus is great, Aunt May is great, and it's incredibly emotional. This game has, without question, probably one of the saddest endings you will ever see in a comic book. In fact, you know what? I take that back. I'll give it that. This game has, without question, the saddest ending you will ever see in a superhero-focused video game. And I just cannot wait for the second game to come out, because they did also an amazing job with Spider-Man Miles Morales, though I thought it was a little bit too easy. I thought playing as Peter Parker is a little bit better than playing as Miles, because I think Miles is a little too OP. But heck, when the sequel comes to this game, I think it has the possibility of being not only a superior game to this game, but possibly, if it pulls off, could actually be a future contender to join my exclusive 10 out of 10 club, but heck, only time will tell. But as it stands right now, this takes only the 2nd place and is only slightly outdone by my number 1 game of all time. Number 1 on my list is a game that, heck, I recently spoke about in one of my most recent ranking videos, and that has to go to, of course, Batman Arkham Asylum. It is a member of my 10 out of 10 club. This game, in my opinion, revolutionized and gave comic book video games the recognition it deserved. Up to this point, I don't really think that there have been any superhero video game that had been that great until this game came out. And this game was so great that it actually influenced several other comic book video games of other heroes just try to copy it. But none of them had, I mean, heck, I would even say Spider-Man was influenced by this game. There's a lot of things in this game that are taken directly from this series. Now, the story is as simple as you could expect it to be, but it's also great. Batman has captured the Joker and he takes him to Arkham Asylum, and then not long after arriving at Arkham Asylum, Joker breaks out, he releases all the inmates, all the superhero villains, and Batman now has to use his gadgets, his wit, his mind, his tools, everything in his arsenal in order to retake control of the island and stop the Joker from causing all kinds of hell. I mean, what more can you ask for? The combat system, the stealth sections, the boss fight, the music, the voice acting from Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill giving it that Batman animated series essence, just all together just makes a perfect combination, a perfect cocktail of a masterpiece of a game. Now, while I openly have recognized that games like Arkham City and Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight certainly did improve several elements that were started here, and I would even say are even better in certain departments, I don't think any of them were flawless. This is like the only one that I think is truly flawless. As those guys made improvements on the sequels, they started introducing flaws that were never introduced in this game, which is why to this day it still remains my favorite entry in the Batman Arkham series, and why not only is it my all-time favorite superhero video game of all time, why it is #1 on my list. So, now that you guys know my top 5 favorite video game or comic book video games of all time, what are some of your favorites? Share your list with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.